This is the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose, where I strategize with business owners on how to grow and scale their businesses to hit their income goals. This is episode 399 of the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose. Today, we're going to be jumping into why mindset work isn't the best method for change with Chrystal Rose. I'm super excited about this episode. Chrystal has been a guest in the past, and I've watched her transform her business over the years. I'm so excited about the work that she is now doing in embodiment. So you're definitely going to want to take a listen in. If you feel like mindset work doesn't quite work for you, there's a reason why. All right, you guys, let's jump in. Hey, Chrystal, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hey, thank you for having me, Jenny. I'm so good.
I am so excited to get to talk to you about the topic of mindset work and why it isn't the best method for change. But before we actually will jump into that, will you introduce yourself and your business to my readers?
Yes. So my name is Chrystal Rose, and I am a transformative coach. I also consider myself a performance coach for entrepreneurs. And basically, I help high-level women in all areas of their life, like not just business, because our life affects business and business affects our life, and essentially help women and humans become better versions of themselves, and not just in that fluffy kind of way, but like truly achieve the things that you want to achieve and then leave all of the stuff that's holding you back behind.
Okay, excellent. I love it. And you have actually been on the podcast, I think
Yes.
2 other times. You've gone through a lot of different transformations, which I absolutely love because I think a lot of times we get stuck in our own lanes. But
Yeah.
I feel like from what I have been seeing from you on social and seeing things on your website, I just feel like this is you. Like when I
Hmm.
first met you, this is what I see you as. So I'm so excited
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
So
Evolution.
yes, it's such a good thing. And I feel
Yeah.
like COVID really forced us to do that and figure out
Mm.
what we wanted. So, so good. All right. So let's kind of jump right in. What are the
Yeah.
limitations of mindset work when it comes to facilitating real change in individuals?
Yeah. So here's the thing is mindset work is working with your conscious mind. And many people know that we operate from like 95% of our behaviors and beliefs and everything is actually unconscious. It's subconscious, right? So we're really only using like 5 to 15% of our brain consciously. So that's just the things that we're aware of in our conscious world. And most of the things that have happened to us or have created behaviors or even our thoughts, right? Just our thoughts that come through, they've unconsciously, it's like a program that's being run. And so
Mhm.
the limitations of mindset work when we're trying to work from the conscious, it's really difficult because if this is a program that's been running for a long time, instead of getting to the root, we're just trying to hit it at the surface.
All right. That makes a ton of sense because
Yeah.
it does. It feels like work when you're trying to do it. But like you're
Yeah.
saying, if there's things that you don't know that you're necessarily doing, it's just naturally happening. How
Mhm.
can we actually impact that?
Yeah.
So, can you actually kind of explain the difference in your mind between mindset work and other approaches to actual personal development or even behavior change?
Yes. So there's like a ton of modalities out there, but the main ones that I focus on is embodiment work, which is through the body, and then unconscious reprogramming work. So that's actually speaking to your subconscious. And so whereas, mindset work, again, it's very much in that conscious realm.
Mhm.
And we're babysitting our thoughts all day. Like, we really have to be like, okay, I need to make sure that I don't think this thought, or if I think this thought, I have to do this thing, or oh no, I caught myself doing it again, right? Like, we're constantly like holding on really tight. Whereas with embodiment work, for example, I go through the body, which is a back door to the unconscious, and I can find where we store beliefs and wounds and even trauma in the body. And with the unconscious reprogramming, it's like speaking to that program that's running, more like closing a tab on your computer, right? If you've got 50 tabs open, they're all running in the background, all of them, even if you're not on it. And so this work is kind of like closing that tab. It gets to the root rather than the surface or the symptom, which is what mindset work tends to focus on.
Okay, so what would be some of the questions that you might ask in the embodiment work to
Mhm.
figure out where someone has, they're kind of storing it? What would be some of the questions? How do you dive into that?
Such a good question. Yeah. So here's the thing, right? If you have a behavior, or, negative thoughts or something, right? There's a feeling or sensation attached to it. So whether that behavior is being perfectionistic, self-sabotage, or it's just like that inner critic, there's something you feel in your body when that happens. And so what I do is I dive into that feeling in your body, like, how old is it, right? So I ask a series of questions depending on the person because who knows, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what does it feel like? If it was saying something to you, what would that be? And then like, how old is it? Like, how old do you think it is? And that tends to just kind of pop through. And sometimes a memory will come along with it. And so then we can really figure out like where this actually came from.
Okay, so as you're walking through this, I'm
Mhm.
thinking about my own tendencies of
Mhm.
trying to be a perfectionist. And
Yeah.
I can say the tension for me, I always feel between my shoulders. Like it's my
Mm.
shoulders just kind of tense up almost immediately. And even when you said go back and think about like where you first felt that, I know exactly when it was. And it
Mhm.
was, I think I was probably middle school and it
Mm.
was basketball and getting cut from a team for AAU. And it started from that point on of feeling like I always had to practice to get better
Mhm.
and was very hard on myself because of that.
Yeah.
So I can understand that. But part of me also
Mhm.
thinks that that's made me who I am. Like,
Mm.
I don't see my perfectionism necessarily as like it doesn't stop me.
Ooh,
It's
Jenny.
something that I feel like I work through, I push past. I
Mhm.
don't know.
He,
Um,
here's the thing about perfectionism, right? Is perfectionism, people pleasing, things like that. People are like, they identify with it. This is who I am, right?
oh
Like,
yeah, no.
I'm a perfectionist. That's what people say, right? I'm a
Okay.
perfectionist. When perfectionism is actually a coping mechanism. So there is like a lack of, I'm not sure the right word, like purity here, right? So you're trying to move towards what you want to do, and that perfectionism is like kind of getting in the way. And so you're like facing it and battling it and moving through it. It's not necessarily stopping you,
Yep.
but it requires effort and energy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then that feeling and sensation kind of happens in your body. So what I do wipes that out. It just it's not a thing anymore. You're not a perfectionist. That's not who you actually are. Now, at the time, maybe when you were in basketball, like you needed that to keep you safe and to get you love, right? We only take on these behaviors because we're like, oh my gosh, if I'm perfect, if I achieve all of the things, I will be loved.
Mm-hmm.
If or keep safe, right? Depending on what was going on at that time. So that's a program that's running. So even now, even though you know that you're loved, and you know that you don't have to do things to receive love from the people who love you, there's still that little pinch in your shoulders that's like, you better do this right, or what if
Mm-hmm.
everyone stops loving you, right? It's unconscious. You're not thinking it. It's not in your conscious mind.
Okay. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at the mindset work that we typically hear people saying of like talking to your thoughts and catching yourself, right? How
Mhm.
does that oversimplify the complex issues that we actually have?
It's okay. So I love this using this analogy, right? So when we do the mindset work, it's like let's say you have like a negative thought come in that you don't want to be thinking because you know it's not helpful, you know it doesn't serve you. It's like having weeds, right? Like weeds in your garden. And instead of removing the weeds, you just plant a flower. That's the mindset work, right? And they just plant more flowers. Now you can't really see the weeds, but they're still there, right? And now you have pretty flowers and you can't really see the weeds, but the weeds are still there. They're still underneath. So that's the root of the thought. The thoughts are going to keep coming, even though you've gotten really good at stifling them down. You may not even notice them anymore, but it's taken a lot of like trying to condition yourself. But if you're not paying attention or something happens that's big, it all like wipes away. It's like, boom, I'm back where I started. And that's why so many people feel like they've backslid because they've been holding on so tightly to this like mindset. There's no root, there's no footing in it. And it's just a bunch of flowers covering what's really underneath.
Hey there, guys. My name is Melanie from Mostly Under Control, and I am a member of Jenny's Influencer Entrepreneurs Insiders membership. I've been a part of it since 2017, and over these 6 years, I've taken full advantage of the weekly trainings that Jenny offers and the monthly group coaching. The group coaching is probably my favorite part of the membership. Jenny has taught me so many things for my business. She helped me niche down and write and teach about what I wanted so that I wouldn't burn out. In addition to what she teaches, the networking I've done with other members has been invaluable. I recommend her membership to all of my online business owner friends because it is worth every single penny.
I love that analogy because as
Yeah.
you're talking about, like, I'm thinking, okay, what would be the action that I'd be taking for that mindset work? And everybody
Mhm.
says, oh, gratitude, be grateful,
Yeah.
say your gratitude. So that I see
Which
as
is
those
great.
habits.
Like it's wonderful to be grateful, but
Yeah.
it's just a band-aid on a bullet wound.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. So good. So what do actual societal factors play in influencing our individual mindsets? And how does this impact the effectiveness of that mindset work?
Mm. That's a really good question. So, like, societally, we are conditioned in so many ways, right? Especially in different like pockets or industries. So, like, as an entrepreneur, it is conditioned in us to just keep going and never quit and like work hard and work a million hours now so you can have the life that people won't later, right? Like, there's like this like propaganda essentially associated with it. Conditioning around our bodies, and food, conditioning around women competing with each other. There's just so much societal stuff. And then of course, we all are born into different sets of challenges, right? Like I'm gonna have a different set of challenges as a child who underwent abuse and trauma than someone who's born in a different color skin than me, right? And it's not necessarily, oh, it's harder for me or it's harder for you. It's like they're different. And there are
Mhm.
different things that I've had to overcome, whereas someone else would. And it's what makes, I think, us so beautiful is that there are two people who can experience actually the same exact thing and experience it in a different way and have a different, coping mechanism or whatever as a result of it. And that's one of the things I love about my work so much is because everyone's so different. And that's why I keep adding to my toolbox because it's not the same thing isn't going to work for every single person, right? Because we're all so different, but we're all the same. And we all like our computer programming in our minds is all very similar, right? And so unraveling that, while you may have had a very different experience than me or someone else that I work with, unraveling that is very similar, just different. Like I don't even need to know, right? If someone I've been work with is like undergone some like deep trauma, I don't actually need to know. I don't need them to tell me to help them unravel it, like at all, because it's like a process.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
totally makes sense. Yeah, that hustle culture that we go through
Oof.
as entrepreneurs, it definitely trains you and makes you think that you have to continue to push down that path. And I think it
More,
a
more,
lot of
more.
times will make things worse. It'll lead to burnout. It'll lead to imposter syndrome and comparison and all of the things that can often hinder us in our
Yeah.
businesses as we continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, and then of course, and there's always the opposite way, right? The anti-hustle culture. And that messaging is just like, don't do anything, work 2 hours a week and blah, blah, blah. And then there are people who are working their butts off being like, how? How can I do that? And I always take a very shades of gray, middle of the road approach, right? Like I'm both. I work really, really hard and I don't overwork and I don't burn out and I have a really full life outside of work. And so it's really important, I think, for especially if you are very ambitious, right, to like have the mixture of both. Because most of us can't fathom going from like, working 90 hours a week to like sitting on the couch eating bonbons, just like hoping and praying everything works out. Like that's not how it works.
Right. But one of the things that you said is that you have a full life outside of work. And I think
Mm,
that that's what I often run into with a lot of business owners is that they struggle with that because they
hmm.
have such an amazing passion for what they are doing
Yeah.
that they see that as their joy. Like that's what
Hmm.
they want to do. They don't
That
want to
was
go
me
out
for a
and
long time. Yeah.
yes, I
Yeah.
agree. And that's how I actually started a side hustle was because I was told, get a hobby, find something that's yours, you make it. And it very much became, it actually became my life. And it was
Yeah.
very exciting and I love still doing it. But those relationships that you have with your family and with friends can definitely struggle from that. So, how can we sort of make sure that we still have a full life, still have enjoyment and outside of work? Are there certain things that you put in place in order to do that?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things I think, because it's very easy to just tell someone to get a hobby and like, oh no, don't work too many hours or don't do this. That's just mindset stuff, right? That's just telling someone something they already know. That's telling a person with depression to just be happy, right? Like that's not how it works.
Mhm.
That's not how it works. But the first step in that is expanding your capacity. Because so many entrepreneurs, especially, are operating at their maximum capacity, right? Like just full out all the time. And so that's why we end up getting burned out. That's why we end up like not being able to fit anything else into our life because there's just no space for it. I don't have time. I don't have room, whatever. And what I do is I help them to expand their emotional capacity first, which means you can be doing all of the same stuff that you're doing, but now it feels effortless. It's crazy how that works. Like I am probably doing more now than I'd ever done when I felt overwhelmed and burnt and just like wanted to crawl under a rock, right? Like I was just so tapped out and I had no life outside of work. And then I started expanding my capacity. I started cleaning up those energy leaks. I stopped doing the stuff that I felt obligated to do or that I hated, that felt like I had to do. I started doing more energy giving things, more things that brought me life, regulated my nervous system, right? And so now I spend less time actually working. I'm way more productive. And I have things outside of work, so many things now. I'm reading fiction. Like, what is that? I didn't read fiction for years because I felt like it wasn't productive enough, right? Like, only personal
Mhm.
development or business books. Thank you. But now I have such a big full life because I have so much more space. I have more space for the people I love. I have more space to like overflow my own cup. And I have a ton of space for work, which I love too. More and
Yes.
more and more. Like we get to have so much more of the good stuff when most people can't fathom bringing in more of anything.
I love the way that you explain it because you didn't use the word boundaries. Because I think a lot of people get scared by that word. They're like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
what is that? That sounds like I'm going to limit myself in what I do." But
Hmm.
you talk about it as the energy that you get from it when you give it, and that it is adding energy. And I think
Hmm.
to me, that's exactly what boundaries do. It's
Yeah.
just a less restrictive way, and you're doing it based on how you feel. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, like I'll never tell a client, like, because most of the women I work with, I mean, they're powerhouses. I work with like 7, 8 figure entrepreneurs that have already like built this massive business, right? The last thing I'm going
Mhm.
to tell you to do is like, you should take a break and like, don't work and work less and quit and any of that. Like, I know, no, 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 because I know you love it. It's just, we just have to make some tweaks here so that you have more space and then you'll really love it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's like you get to do more actually. And I think a lot of people are really taken aback by that when I'm like, no, you can do more. It's not about you're not, like you're capped out. It's that you're capped out because of the way that you're doing things, how you're doing it, and what you're doing.
Yes. And you're not getting the energy by being able to go out there and do the things that bring you joy.
Hmm.
You aren't feeling creative. I have a lot of entrepreneurs that will say to me, the best time for their ideas is when they actually have
Yeah.
taken space and done something that they
When their
love.
brain's not going 1,000 miles or being
Yeah,
distracted. Yes. Like in the shower or 3 a.m.
exactly.
Yeah, I
No.
get that.
So good. All right. So you have to tell me about your embodied baddie, the 3-day shift that
Yes.
you offer. What does that consist of? We're going to link to it in our
Yeah.
actually show notes so that they can make sure that they jump into that. But explain it to us. What exactly is it?
So this is kind of like my absolute like bare minimum way for people to get involved like working with me because most women are like, oh, I just don't have time. I don't have time, right? And so this is literally we can improve your emotional state in like 5 minutes or less. And so that's what this is about. It's 3 days of let's just try these things, see how you feel, and notice how actually powerful just these tiny little things are. These tiny little changes, and imagine what would happen if you really went full into this work, right? Which even then is like not a lot of time, right? But most people see that time. And so this is really a way to get in at 5 minutes or less a day to improve your emotional state. It's only $7, which is basically free. And the only reason why we put $7 on it is so you have some skin in the game. Because how many things have you bought before or not bought, but like gotten for free before that you just let sit in your inbox? And it's delivered on private podcast audio, which I've been using for all of my programs because I want you to do it. And it's so much easier to listen to something while you're doing something else rather than feeling like you have to sit and watch. So I've really created this for like the busy high level woman or man.
Yep. So good. Excellent. So we are going to link to that actually
Yeah.
so you can make sure that everybody grabs that and takes advantage of what you are offering. Can you tell them where else are the best places to actually connect with you if they have questions, to work with you and moving forward?
Yeah. So you can always go to my website, chrystalrose.com. That's Chrystal. I'm also very active on Instagram. My business account is at The Embodied Baddie. And you can also find me on Facebook, Chrystal Rose or Xtal Rose is the handle, I believe. And I'm very active there. So any of those three spots.
Excellent. We will make sure that those are included as well. Chrystal, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and my audience.
Yeah.
I truly appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Jenny. It's been so good to reconnect with you.
Of course. I don't know about all of you, but if you are not intrigued, I definitely am. I cannot wait to jump into that 3-day offering that Chrystal has given to us. It is such an opportunity to be able to take a look at some of the issues that you have been running into and to take them to a whole nother level. As always, I appreciate y'all so much for listening in. If you haven't already left a rating and review, I would appreciate it if you took the time to do so. It's just going into your podcasting app, leaving a quick rating, and then a couple sentences review can be about this episode or the podcast in general. It just helps to continue to get great guests on the show. All right, guys, until next time, I will see you all then.